Today, we're diving into a new directive from the US government that's stirring up a lot of debate. It sits right at the intersection of big tech, immigration, and free speech. And honestly, it could completely change who gets to come work in the US, all based on their role in, well, policing the internet.
So let me ask you this. Can your job title actually stop you from getting a US visa? It sounds kind of crazy, right? But it's the exact question at the heart of what we're talking about today. And for some really talented, highly skilled workers, the answer might suddenly be yes.
So what exactly is going on here? Well, the U.S. State Department recently sent out an internal memo to its staff. And this wasn't just some minor update. It's a directive that pretty much rewrites the rulebook on how they're supposed to evaluate certain visa applications, all through the lens of what the administration is calling censorship. And they're not beating around the bush. The memo is incredibly direct. It tells consular officers to seriously consider rejecting visa applications from anyone who has a background in jobs like fact-checking or content moderation. This policy takes direct aim at a very specific and very important group of tech professionals.
Okay, so why? Why now? The way the administration is framing this is as a move to defend free speech for Americans. But to really get why this is happening, we need to rewind a little bit and look at the events that led us here.
See, this policy didn't just appear out of thin air. You can trace its roots back to January 2021, when former President Trump was banned from several major social media platforms. That event led to a policy announcement in May of 2025, which targeted foreigners supposedly involved in censoring Americans. And now, this latest memo applies that same logic directly to skilled workers trying to get a visa.
And if you want to hear it from them directly, this quote from a State Department spokesperson says it all. They're positioning this as a defense of free speech, saying they don't want foreign workers coming into the U.S. to act as censors. You can hear the echoes of the controversy over the former president's social media bans loud and clear.
So let's get specific. Who exactly is in the crosshairs here? Well, the directive is actually very clear. It's aimed at a particular type of visa and a pretty specific list of jobs you'd find all over the tech industry.
The policy is laser-focused on H-1B visas. You've probably heard of these. They're the go-to visa for foreign workers in what are called specialty occupations. We're talking engineers, data scientists, all the experts that tech companies really depend on to stay competitive. This is the talent pipeline that's now under this new microscope.
And here are the job titles that are raising red flags. We're talking about fact-checking, content moderation, trust and safety teams, people who work on combating misinformation and disinformation. Even compliance roles are on the list. Basically, if your resume says you've done this kind of work, getting a visa just got a whole lot harder. And get this, the memo doesn't just say what to look for, it tells them how to investigate. Consular officers are being told to actively dig into an applicant's background. They're supposed to comb through resumes, check LinkedIn profiles, and even search for the person in news articles. And the memo explicitly tells them that if they find this kind of work history, they should pursue an ineligibility finding. That's some pretty strong language.
As you can probably guess, this whole thing has caused a huge backlash. The tech industry and legal experts who focus on free speech are pushing back hard. Let's take a look at their side of the story.
This quote from Alice Gogan-Hunsberger, who is a professional in the trust and safety field, really gets to the heart of the industry's argument. She's saying that the policy is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what they do. The goal, she says, isn't to censor people. It's to make the internet safer for everyone who uses it.
And this really lays out the core conflict, doesn't it? You have two completely opposite definitions for the exact same job. The administration sees it as the suppression of speech. The tech sector sees it as critical and life-saving work to stop things like child exploitation and financial fraud. It's like they're talking about two different planets.
So what does that critical and life-saving work actually look like? Well, people in the field say it's about stopping the spread of child sexual abuse material, or CSAM. It's about preventing people from getting scammed out of their life savings. It's about fighting things like online sextortion. Their argument is that you need a global team with diverse language skills to protect American users from these very real dangers.
And it's not just an industry issue. There's a big legal argument, too. The Knight First Amendment Institute straight up calls the policy unconstitutional. Their point is that this isn't government censorship. This is a private company making its own editorial decisions, and that kind of decision-making is exactly the sort of thing the First Amendment was created to protect.
So let's just zoom out for a second. This whole thing is way bigger than just one visa policy. It's really a flashpoint in a much larger global conversation about who gets to control what we see and say online. This policy is just the U.S. government's latest and maybe most direct move in that worldwide debate.
And check this out. In a related move, it's not just about what you did for a living anymore. The State Department is also going to require H-1B applicants and even their family members to set their social media profiles to public so they can be reviewed. This expands that government scrutiny from your professional life right into your personal expression, adding a whole other layer to this global question of privacy and digital rights.
Which brings us to the big, final question, right? In this huge, complicated debate over free speech online, who actually gets to decide? Who draws the line between what's safe and what's censored? This policy puts a U.S. government department in the position of making that call for private companies. And as we've seen, where you draw that line is fiercely debated. And figuring out who holds the pen is really one of the biggest challenges of our time.